Hey, good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Jason, filling in for Darian today. It's May 31st, 2023. This is the JupyterLab weekly call. Got about 10 people on the call at the moment. We have our agenda, which I will once again drop into the chat for anyone who has joined recently. First thing on the agenda is from me, which is the JupyterLab 4 blog post. We officially released JupyterLab 4.0 a couple weeks ago, and more recently we released 4.01. So we have not yet done a blog post on the Jupyter blog about this. So I wanted to get people's feelings about, like, what are the next steps to publish? What do people think about this?
So in the yeah, go ahead, whoever started.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I asked a similar question last week during the call, and I was told that after the text is everyone are happy, after the text is ready to be published, it should be submitted to the inbox through Medium, right? So the question is, if everyone are happy with the draft. Yep.
Yeah, I made so I was out for about a week recently. I came back yesterday, saw that a lot of feedback came in on the Google Doc. I made a bunch of changes. I think there was a bit of concern about collaboration 1.0 not being available yet, but I'm okay in the interest of getting the announcement out of just deleting mention of collaboration 1.0, and we can have a follow-up blog post about collaboration 1.0. What do folks think about that?
Yeah, I think that was one of the remaining items. Like, it would have been nice to have it released before publishing the blog post, but realistically, I don't know if that's going to happen in the coming week or weeks. So probably we shouldn't wait on that then, because otherwise we might just wait for a bit too long.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, like we discussed on the issue, when people do pip install Jupyter collaboration, they will get the pre-release anyway, because there is no final release. So it's not like we have to update the command line afterwards. Like we can just use pip install Jupyter collaboration directly. And if there are still issues, they will be fixed as we go. So we'll be fine.
Okay.
What is
go ahead.
What is the status of Jupyter Lite? Because I know it was using developer builds of JupyterLab, but I'm not sure if it was caught up with 4.0 release.
So the stable release is still on the JLab 3 and the Retro Lab. There is a work in progress PR to update to Lab 4 and the Book 7 packages, but it's not there yet. I think we just need to go back to it, and then maybe we could get a pre-release of that out at some point.
Okay.
I agree, it would be nice to have it somewhere so that we could maybe use that for testing it as an alternative to Binder for sure.
In light of the capacity problems with Binder, I'd be okay with deleting the passage from the blog post that says you can try it out on Binder, both because someone expressed concern that that was just linking to your gist, Jeremy. It didn't seem like an authoritative source. I believe that you're authoritative, Jeremy. I don't take it personally, but also because Binder is having some constraints. We might want to discourage people. We might not want to encourage people to experiment just out of their own curiosity. So I'm okay with deleting that to say, if you're interested in trying it out, go try it out, go download it and run it on your own machine. Are folks okay with that?
Yeah. Although I mean the blog post, they stay around for a long time, so who knows, maybe in a few months Binder will be better again. So it could also be nice to have it in the post. And
Yeah.
for the past few years, we've been using this JupyterLab demo, and I see that there was some activity recently on that repo to update it to JupyterLab 4. So I don't know, maybe yeah, we could also just have a small link, but not like promote it too much.
There's
Otherwise,
also,
we can also
go
update
ahead,
the
sorry.
post. We could also update the blog post afterwards, but usually we just forget to do it. But if someone with edit rights on Medium could also add the binder link later on.
Yeah.
If we don't forget about it, for sure.
Personally, I was looking at this page, which I just dropped into the chat, the Try Jupyter page, which it still uses Jupyter Lite, so it's not going to give you JupyterLab 4, but I could link to that to say, as of this writing, this still uses JupyterLab 3, but it could be upgraded. It will be upgraded soon. Or we could just go back into Medium and edit something later when it's available. Like, I don't think that this is going to be a controversial edit to put that in when we're ready. But I think the announcement is more important than like having all the information totally complete. Andrew, you have your hand up.
I agree that having an announcement in some reasonable time after the release is important. At the same time, having a way for people to immediately try JupyterLab would be nice, especially if we are going to promote the post. So the question is if, so for me, Binder, if it uses packages published on pip, and is able to build from already made image, it loads in every time. For example, Jeremy's gist loads for me every time. So I guess the question is, for example, I think we could update notebook demo, right? What Mike I was looking into it yesterday. I know Mike was also working on it. But should we do it now, taking into account the unreliability of Binder? Alternative, I think we shouldn't like put something that leads to 3.6. It would be better to edit it in later if we are not happy with the state of the binder, or we think like updating a good link not on Jeremy's gist in a reasonable time is impossible. Yeah, that's what I think.
I can file an issue against the website as well to upgrade the try page, just so that we have that in our queue as well. Okay, so next steps on this, I will make a couple more edits as we discussed to, for example, delete the collaboration stuff, delete the messages to use Binder, and then I can talk with Brian or other people about getting it submitted. Vidar, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the discussion on that document kind of disappeared for me. I know Andrew said that he had accidentally deleted something or not. So I'm not sure if the discussion was completed or not. But for I think both the settings editor and the cell toolbar, right? The current text reads as if these are new features in 4.0.
Yeah.
Well, they exist in the 3x releases, but there are improvements to them, right? In the 4x, or they're made more extensible or whatever. So I think the actual text there should be more. You should be careful about saying that this is new with the current phrasing, because if it isn't, like the full feature is new.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that there is some nuance there that is important, and there is some new features there. I just think we should just have the text should be more careful to reflect it. Also, I'm thinking, I think I agree with all the points, but have people spent any time in considering the order of the points? Whether we want like headliners on top or on the bottom, I don't.
So when I wrote the first draft of that, I used the release announcement, like the change log. I forget who compiled that as a kind of guidance. And this blog post is an announcement. It's not meant to be comprehensive. So I I resolved a bunch of the comments yesterday. So if you're curious about where your comments went, I don't know how Google Docs like sorts those resolved comments, but they haven't been totally
Yeah.
disregarded or deleted. They've just been like resolved. I hit the check button.
I see Andre has the hand open, so maybe
Yeah.
that's
So I just wanted to clarify on that. Adding on the you know what in terms of what is present in what order. I'm open to suggestions. I also don't think that every single feature needs to be there. And I also hear your statements about the cell toolbar and the settings not being totally new. We might, in the interest of brevity, want to delete that. Like, even
I'm
if
not
this
saying delete
post
it.
is
I'll leave that to you. I'm just saying that if they are not new, but there is some new exciting stuff in there, I think the text should
having
reflect
worked on the
that.
cell toolbar, I don't know if there's something exciting in the cell toolbar as implemented in 4.0. So we could call attention to it, or we could just like say, hey, check this out. You know,
Yeah,
I don't want this. I don't want this to linger forever, especially because I want to get another blog post going, which we can probably talk about next week. Andrew had his hand up, but you've put it down. Andrew, did you have something to add?
Yeah. So I wanted to say to Vidar that your comments were to my suggestions, like in edit mode. And when I was editing my suggestion, I didn't understood it would happen. But like when you edit something that was commented in, the comment would get deleted. That's what happened. But
Yeah,
I had
no.
like a copy of the document, so I mentioned it in the comment. So regarding that comment, there was a keynote address during the JupyterCon,
Oh, yeah,
and
I was at that.
those features were mentioned as a new. So I was under impression that yes, they were backported to 3.6, but
My impression was that there were improvements to them. They were made more extensible.
So,
And that's why they were that was new for 4.0, and that's why it was mentioned. And it also, the lab talk on JupyterCon was more about like what is the state of JupyterLab, right? What has changed since the last release, and then whether it's in the 4.0 or the 3.x release branch isn't that relevant. Well, for this blog post that is specifically about JupyterLab 4, that distinction is a little bit more significant. But yeah,
I would vote for keeping the additions which were backported, but moving them to the very end. And
sure.
maybe some headline. By the way, these improvements were not are not completely new, but are still new if you haven't upgraded from 3.0.
Yeah. Okay. These are all really good suggestions. Thank you all.
Yeah.
I will make additional modifications to that blog post and we'll try to push that forward. Today is Wednesday. I'd like to at least get this into the submission queue by the end of the week, so that we can hopefully get that in the queue. One other topic. Oh, sorry, Mike, you got a question?
Yes. Do you have any kind of illustrations for that in mind? Because if not, I can try to provide some screenshots. But if you've already thought about something, especially given the constraints of Medium, which only allows
Yeah.
for a number of screenshots.
Yeah, screenshots take up a lot of room on Medium because of the way that it does layout. So like I'm trying not to, if I use a lot of screenshots, it's going to make the post take up a lot of vertical space. So I haven't added any. If you want to submit any, that's fine. I think smaller is probably better than bigger. Like if you want to emphasize one part of the UI, that might fit a little bit better. I'm okay to submit it just as text and let people kind of try it out for themselves. Yeah, I don't have any in mind to answer your question.
Okay, so yeah, I will try to compile like one screenshot which highlights all the functions.
Okay.
And if you don't hear from me by the end of tomorrow, just ignore it and submit it as is.
Okay.
There are some features that are really, I mean, much easier to understand when you see them. For example, they're like in the JupyterLab 4 talk, the video about the performance improvements.
Yes,
have
that was a really good
text.
video.
So we could put the some text about that for sure, but like, I mean, if you see it live, so in Medium it would be complicated to have the video, but maybe we could have a GIF instead. I think
Yeah.
they work.
It does work with animations, although
Yeah.
it also lets you use animations as the hero image, as like the primary image, which I think is a little distracting. But putting it in the page, also Medium generally prefers you to have at least one image in there. So if we could have an image just with like a screenshot of the 4.0 interface, perhaps showing one or two features in it, that would be a good key image to show up in the feed. So yeah, I will follow up end of the week, probably beginning of Friday, my time. So that would give our friends in Europe all day to work on that. So yeah, please feel free to send me stuff or add it to the Google Doc. But yeah, I would like to move this forward as soon as I can. On a related note, when that's out, I'd like it to, I can promote it on Discourse. I don't know who has permissions to publish to the Twitter account. I might, in fact, if that's in the 1Password. But we should probably like post about it on social media as well to really get the word out, because I haven't seen a whole lot on the Project Jupyter Twitter account. Andrew's got his hand up.
I wanted to talk about collaboration. So it was one of the major promised features of 4.0, and even though 1.0.0 is not released, the collaboration is working as is. So taking that into account, should we actually delete the mention of the collaboration from blog post?
That's already my plan. Yes, we can have a separate blog post when collaboration 1.0 is out.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure this is the correct decision, but if there are no diverse, whatever, yeah, that's fine if everyone are okay with that.
Okay, I know that we wanted to make this a big deal, but I also respect the decision of the team. And we can have like a follow-up discussion about that. I think that's the topic of RTC is substantial and complex enough to merit a blog post and a discussion thread of its own.
So one thing that was also discussed during JupyterCon, I don't know if that would be possible to do it like in a short time frame, would be to also show how all of these new versions of JupyterLab, Jupyter Notebook 7 and also JupyterLab Desktop can work together. You know, so it's like reusing the same, pretty much the same framework, and just show that you could collaborate on the documents using any of these. So it would have been great to get those in the blog post as well, but maybe that won't be in this one. Maybe this one should just be a short announcement indeed for JupyterLab 4, and then we could write new ones for sure. Focus maybe more on maybe collaboration, yeah, or like
I mean, this is the great thing about the blog being our medium. It's like if you want to send out press releases, those cost thousands of dollars per press release. So you try not to, send out too many press releases that cost a lot of money. But Medium, I don't think we pay per post. And Discourse, I'm pretty sure we don't pay per post. And Twitter, we can post all we want on these media. So let's do that. Let's keep the conversation going. Vidar's got his hand up.
Yeah, there's two follow-up comments. The one concern I have by not mentioning RTC at all, one thing is deleting the text that is there now. The other is not mentioning it at all, is how many users are expecting JupyterLab 4 to be where RTC is dropping. They will see this announcement, they will come to the blog post and they will see no mention of it at all. Will they think that that means it's vaporware, it's never happening? And if we do a follow-up blog post, will that have the same amount of visibility, right? One thing is that we can post it. The other question is, will the blog posts reach the intended audience, right? So that's that. Those would be the counterpoints. I don't know if they are. Which one should weigh the most? So I'm not.
Yeah,
Kudos
I don't
for-
want to dwell too much on this because we've got other topics on the agenda. This is something we've gone back and forth a bit on the draft. Like, do we mention that RTC is not in JupyterLab 4 on its own? Do we say something like we pulled this out into a package of its own and be on the lookout for an upcoming announcement about that? We could say that. What do other people think about that? Mike says, I think we should mention it. Any other thoughts?
I think the risk.
I agree
not-
that we need to be careful about collaboration. We need to at least mention it if we don't.
I'm seeing
announced
a
it.
few yeses, a few +1s. So unless I hear a loud enough dissent, I can reinstate it as a kind of lightweight. Hey, if you're waiting for RTC, know that it's not built into JupyterLab 4, but it is available in JupyterLab collaboration, which is currently in pre-release. Keep an eye on this space for an announcement, when that's available. By the way, whoever's working on the release of that, who's probably on this call, should work on a blog post when collaboration 1.0 is out so that we can plug that when it's available as well. Okay, it is now nearly past the hour, and we've got a few other people who put their names on the agenda. So I don't want to take up all the time. Thank you all for your contributions here, and I've got action items of my own. Jeremy is next up on the agenda.
Yeah, there's just a small announcement. There is 4.0.1 now available. It's the first patch release since the 4.0 release. And there's been a couple of bug fixes and a bunch of other things. So it's in the trend shop there. And I opened a new issue to start talking and tracking items for 4.1, especially when it comes to the timeline. So for now we have no timeline, but there are a few PRs already kind of ready to go. So the question would be, when do we want to release a 4.1? And when can we start branching? So nothing, like no hurry, I would say, but something to keep in mind. And that's all.
Okay, if there's no comments on that, Mike is next up talking about Jupyter AI, which my team has been working on.
Yeah, so I mentioned that last week when we were discussing the draft post for Jupyter AI, that it would be very nice to have locally hosted models available. And there has been a discussion about that opened since, and I just wanted to highlight that we are talking about this. I suggested that I can contribute towards that, towards making local models work. But there are some considerations, for example, which of the models should be supported, how we should support them when there are constraints when it comes to resources. That was highlighted by David about platform compatibility. And yeah, I just wanted to be a broader discussion within JupyterLab team, and not only persons who happens to be discussing in this issue, just for attention. I linked that in the chat, and just FYI, if anyone is concerned about hosting these meetings, I also a suggestion on the governance report that maybe there is a way to designate alternative hosts in Zoom. That's a very minor point, just FYI.
Yeah, I think that is the case in that, like, if you imagine the hosting duties as a ball, I can pass the ball to someone else. but if nobody is signed in as a host, then nobody has the ball. But like I can make you a co-host.
Yeah, that's like alternative hosts are a separate accounts, which
Oh, a separate account.
it's a designated mechanism for that. So we're
Okay.
exploring with the executive council because that might incur some additional cost. I'm not sure here.
Yeah.
Might help us a lot.
Okay. This is really good like topics. I'm not sure who the next step or who would pick this one up. But it's on the governance team, so I hope that at least the EC would be aware of it. If not, I think you could email them, say like, hey, I have this idea. And on the topic of the locally hosted models, this is something that a bunch of people on my team have replied. David is out on vacation for the following 2 weeks starting today. So you won't hear back from him hopefully soon. I hope he enjoys his vacation. But this is something that we've talked about before. We had a cookie cutter, we discussed it. Things have kind of come and gone, but we need to keep this going because like a lot of people are curious about using generative AI without sending stuff across the wire, having stuff locally hosted. There's a lot of like mini models that can run on a local PC that can still do really cool stuff. So let's keep that conversation going, and everyone will
Are
join
you
in,
going to
please.
be, or someone else from the team, continue to review pull requests in the meantime? Like, for example, I saw a pull request that you created about registering aliases, which actually allows not only to register aliases, but models themselves, providers.
That's been blocked on something that David, my teammate, was working on, and he just merged it in yesterday. So as soon as I'm done with my meetings today, I got to go back to pull requests 136 and 170 and rewrite them to use the new parsing schema that David added, so that it's a little bit less messy. So yeah, those are still, even though those were open some time ago, between JupyterCon, vacations, illnesses, they've been kind of moving a little bit more slowly than I would have liked, but they will be moving forward. I can assure you.
Amazing. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
And thank you to everyone who's been curious about Jupyter AI. I wish I could have been there in that super crowded room while not sick to see and to engage with the community about it, because it's been really fantastic to see the response from everyone. And please, if you're curious about generative AI, try it out. It's a lot of fun. It's not that expensive. You also, of course, have to be mindful of all the privacy policies and such. But yeah, please try it out. That's the end of my self-promotion. Let's move on. Mike, do you have any other topics? Okay, if not, Konstantin is next up on the agenda.
Hey everyone, so Drupal Latex extension was updated. This first update to 3.2 is coming from JupyterCon Sprint, and thanks everyone who participated there. I made a release on GitHub, but I couldn't publish the PyPI package. There's documented way there in that repo. It uses Jupyter Releaser with GitHub Action. That didn't work. So if someone has access to it, it can do it, or better, even teach me how to do it so I can do it in the future. I would appreciate that. And the 4.0 version is merged. And so I plan to add some more packaging changes to go from Jupyter package into Hatch, and then probably release 4.0. And that will need help with release as well when that happens. That's it. I can show how it works. Yeah, I don't know. I can demonstrate that it works in 4.0, but I guess.
Any questions or comments about this for Konstantin? Nice.
Yeah, we have already user asking about running it in 4.0 and they install in the older version. So gotta release that soon.
I love it. That's the shortest demo I've ever seen, but it gets right to the point. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments about Konstantin's update? If not, Vidar is the last one up on the agenda.
Yes, it's just a note from looking through the changelog for 401 that most of the entries there are very good. It tells you immediately what happened, right? And what was going on. It's some of them are very vague. And all of these are pulled from the pull request titles, right? Because it's auto-generated. So maybe just a reminder to also consider the pull request title when reviewing a PR, since they are not ephemeral, since they get pulled into the changelog.
Yeah. This is something that I sometimes have to do during triage, which is retitle something, because sometimes an issue title is not descriptive or uses a tone that is not really consistent with what we're looking for. We want to be we want to be emotionless in this. We want to say like, this changes X, as opposed to X is broken, you must fix it now.
Yeah,
which
and
I
just
see
instead
from
of
time to
saying
time.
like this change happened, but like what happened? Did it happen to, right?
Yes.
Like which package or why? A little bit more higher level is useful. But yeah, so most
Yeah,
of these are good, and looking at some of them, I can tell that these titles only came about due to somebody actually looking at them and improving them.
Yeah, there's an art to being both brief and informative in these issue and PR titles. So please reach out for help if you see anything that looks a little bit unusual
Now,
or need
so
help
yeah,
with the editing.
I just meant this as a PSA for people who had forgotten or are.
Yes. Thank you for the public service announcement, Vidar. Any other topics that people want to discuss on the record? That is on the recording. All right, well, if not, I will stop the recording. Brace yourselves in 3, 2, 1.